We're trying a new format today. These are called briefs, and we only have 15 minutes together. So we're really going to get cooking on some fun conversations quickly, and we're going to go through a number of different topics. You're welcome to stay for all of them. You can get up and come to the ones you want to come to. I don't think we have a list. We don't have a list of which ones, but it's on the app, on the show app, on the schedule. Before we start, I'm Cassie Smith. I'm the Senior Editorial Content Director of SupplySide, and my guest speaker today is Lucas Eastham. He's the lead scientist of fermentation at the Good Food Institute. And today, in this 15-minute brief, we're going to be talking about precision fermentation.
Thank you, Cassie, and thanks for having me here today. My name's Lucas Eastham. I'm a lead scientist focused on fermentation at the Good Food Institute. And the Good Food Institute is a nonprofit think tank, and we're focused on making the food system better for the planet, the people, and animals, and creating that more sustainable and just food system. And so with that in mind, our central tenet is how do we feed the planet both sustainably, efficient, and safely by 2050 when our population is grown from 8 billion to 9 billion and potentially 10 billion people. And essentially, our current food system methods are very harmful to the climate. They're very harmful to biodiversity loss, pandemic risks, and many other factors due to conventional animal agriculture that are increasing climate risks and many of these issues. So we focus on other opportunities such as alternative proteins, which is making meat from plants or dairy and eggs, or making from cultivated meat, using cells to make meat, or fermentation-derived ingredients, whether that be traditional or biomass or precision fermentation. So I gave a brief introduction. So we are a 501c3 nonprofit, thanks to our philanthropic donors that allow us to do all our work to landscape and assess the path to that more sustainable and just food system. We work across science and technology, corporate engagement, and policymakers. So I work in our science and technology team, really landscaping the technology out there for fermentation, but we also have plant-based scientists and cultivated meat scientists looking at what are the roadblocks and bottlenecks that would prohibit these developments for these new developments. We also work across companies, looking at food industry stakeholders, supply chains, and also policymakers, making sure that there's a path to market for new ingredients that are coming through development. So we do focus on plant-based, cultivated, and fermentation-derived ingredients. Myself, I focus on fermentation and what are the opportunities there. And many of you are very, very familiar with fermentation, our traditional fermentation using those intact microorganisms to modulate either a plant protein or an animal protein like dairy into a very appealing product. Think cheese and think our different products like tofu and tempeh. We also look at biomass fermentation where we're producing large quantities of microorganisms to then make a food product from those microbes. A great example is corn with a Q from Marlowe Foods and producing that mycoprotein-based products. And then today we're going to talk about precision fermentation where we're using microorganisms to make very specific functional ingredients for either plant-based meat or dairy or eggs. So really, it's a new term. I think the term probably popped up around 2016 or so, and there's a great new report from the FAO looking at precision fermentation from a food safety perspective, talking about the etiology of precision fermentation as a term. But it's not a new term. Or a new technology. We use enzymes, we use flavorants, we use citric acid as a preservative, and we also use biomass proteins, whether it's yeast extracts or mycoprotein. These are not new or novel ideas. We're just implementing them in new ways. So for precision fermentation, I'm going to jump to here. Our definition of precision fermentation is to harness the microorganisms, whether it be a yeast, a bacteria, or a fungi, to produce a very specific functional ingredient that can be used in various food applications. And so this could be a protein, a lipid, it could be a vitamin, it could be many things. And some folks focus on it as a genetically modified process where you're inserting a gene to then produce a specific ingredient from those microbes, or you could be taking a natural extract from those microbes, such as a natural colorant or a specific vitamin, think astaxanthin. So precision fermentation is a very common approach. We're just implementing it in new ways to make new ingredients that can help our food system grow. So really, for proteins, which we focus hard on, is what are the opportunities in creating really high-impact commodity proteins that are found in our everyday foods? Those range from dairy, so beta-lactoglobulin or alpha-lac in milk, or looking at casein, which is imperative for cheese production, or looking at egg proteins. Lysozyme is often used as a preservative and bacterial treatment, but can we make egg white proteins, which are so important for confectionaries or baking, all these products. And then others like meat-enhancing proteins, what we might call like leg hemoglobin, an iron-binding heme that Impossible Foods pioneered for their burgers, or looking at myoglobin or hemoglobin proteins, or perhaps even collagen that can be used as both a nutraceutical as well as a food ingredient, but produced through precision fermentation. And then finally, there's a new frontier as well with folks focusing on sweet proteins. So replacing our artificial sweeteners and looking at sweet proteins that are derived from nature, and taking things like monolin and thaumatin. And a new one is a sweet honey truffle protein that was discovered from truffles, where we're making this protein, and it can be used in far less quantities than current sweeteners and other products. So I believe with that, that's all my time. So Good Food Institute, we do have lots and lots of reports out there. Our State of the Industry reports are coming out here in April, where we'll cover the latest investments, company engagement, and patents on fermentation, plant-based and cultivated meat. What does the company landscape look like, and new ingredients coming through. And I'd love to meet you later this afternoon. Thank you.
Thanks, Lucas. So magic is what it's just, I don't really, the science on that is more like, oh, magic. Cool. Okay, so let's talk about precision fermentation and sustainability, and that's kind of a big deal. What does it offer in terms of sustainability from an economic perspective and an environmental perspective and like a human sustainability perspective?
Yep. So I think that's on everyone's mind, and I did see the Sustainable Development Goals out front, and we believe that fermentation offers many of those. We have life cycle assessments to look at various protein production, oil production from microbes that can be used as food ingredients, and what we see is relative to conventional animal agricultural products, we can have upwards of 70 to 90% less greenhouse gas emissions, over 90% land use reduction, because we're not using large quantities of soy or pea to then produce those animals. We can reduce biodiversity loss then by having more direct calorie in to calorie out for our food production, as well as less water consumption. So there are many life cycle assessments that are coming out across biomass and precision fermentation that all point to the benefits. But as you mentioned, sustainability is really not just environmental; it's that human health and economic sustainability. And we believe that precision fermentation offers an opportunity for countries to create food security by creating the feedstocks that they could harvest within their own countries, taking food waste and converting it into fermentable sugars and using that as sources for fermentation production. Reducing your land use requirement, shipping across seas, creating more food security within independent countries. Here in the U.S., we have an incredible opportunity with our corn production to be able to actually funnel that towards human food production instead of just biofuels production, offering an opportunity for those sugar feedstocks. And then on the human sustainability, we're creating nutritious proteins. We're talking about whey protein. Everyone knows whey protein as a complete protein. And to be able to produce that in a nutritious way and formulate it in very functional ways is a really big opportunity, and creating more higher value proteins like lactoferrin as perhaps a more nutraceutical protein that has its iron binding and immunosuppressant potential. So lots of opportunities with PF, or precision fermentation.
PF, he's got to lock that in. Precision fermentation. So this is like, I just want to get into this because we have 5 more minutes, and this is like the essential question, I think, for industry, and I'm sorry that I'm putting you on the spot here. So there are a lot of very like non-GMO people in the industry, and potentially with consumers who maybe are confused about what this is, that don't quite understand the science, but it is unnatural, and so they say no. How does Good Food Institute or you, or how do we help the food and beverage industry sort of maybe look look at that in a different way, or move the industry into this more science-forward viewpoint?
Sure. Yeah, so I guess I'll start with, when we're talking about producing animal proteins through precision fermentation, we are often talking about genetically modified microbes that are then producing that protein. And I think that comes, as you said, comes with a lot of connotation and language to folks that they may interpret that in different ways. And that's unfortunate. So we're talking about, typical pathways of like enzyme production, and we use many enzymes in our food system. And yes, many of those are genetically modified organisms, but we're separating those microbes away from the actual final food product. So the actual genetic material is not making it in. I'll also say that I think there's a lot of issues for folks that, when you think about Roundup Ready crops and, the issues that people took with that. And very much so, you're eating this material. That was for genetic material and components that we didn't know what the impact was on human health. We're talking about a dairy protein gene that is already found within a cow. These are proteins that we know and that we have been used to, and you're eating it when you eat a cow, or when you're eating that egg, you're eating that same genetic material. But to help assuage some of those fears, the microbe is separated from the process just to produce that protein ingredient. I'll also say that like food is science, and I think there's a lot of this pushback against, it's unnatural and I want natural food. But really, as humans, we've evolved the food system in a scientific way. We discovered traditional fermentation in a very natural way. We then harness that as a food science technology to then be able to, preserve our foods and create new foods. And I think over time, you're just going to see that same thing with citric acid. We used to, just get citric acid from fruits. Now we produce it with microbes. Rennet. We used to just get rennet from the lining of calf stomachs. And now, thankfully to precision fermentation, we get that from microbes.
Fascinating. And I know you said that you might not know the answer to this, but we can get there sort of roundabout. What does a consumer know about precision fermentation? And how do you make that something that's understandable, or do they even care?
So I have to take my scientist hat off for this one, and I'll just first preface that our corporate engagement team does a lot of focus work on consumer engagement and nomenclature and what does it mean. I'll say my first take is that the consumer doesn't necessarily need to understand fully. They just need to, understand that it's safe. Trust in the processes that it's a safe ingredient. Many consumers don't understand that their citric acid is from microbes, and so how much are we broadcasting that to consumers? But I will say that GFI did run a consumer engagement and messaging project with Accenture this past year, and they found with surveying folks in North America and Europe that consumers do appreciate a little bit of context. If you have some context to what precision fermentation is and describing it in a very down-to-earth way, they do find it appealing. And what else they found was that surveying different terms. How do you want to market this to your consumers? That the term animal-free or not made from animals is a very powerful term. And it's very hard to communicate science, and even myself as a scientist find that very difficult. And probably most scientists do. But if you can do it in an engaging way, but not in a super scientific way, it can be very helpful to consumers.
Awesome. Okay, friends, that's all the time we have. Give Lucas a hand. Thank you so much. Rapid fire.